Well, good morning, weirdos. Nice to see you today. Have no fear, the underdog is here. It's not a lot of hair, but it does require brushing. Squeaky floor. Okay, weirdos. Anybody watch Dragnet last night? Even my wife didn't want to watch it. I will confess I've seen it a number of times. And I will also confess that I fell asleep before the end of the movie. But I know how it ends. So oh, coffee, good, coffee. So let's see. Dragnet, 1987. First of all, we all know who Jack Webb is, correct? Let's see. He was born in 1920 in Santa Monica, California. And I'm going to just assume that he was in the war at some point in his life. One of my favorite movies by Jack Webb is a little-known film called The D.I., the drill instructor, the D.I. And it is a fantastic movie with Jack Webb starring as the main character, the drill instructor. I'll try to post something to that, if not the film itself. There's a great scene where he's on the beach, and it's probably Camp Pendleton, but he's on the beach screaming at a soldier because he moved. And when asked why he moved because there was a sand flea on him. And man, does Jack Webb go into a routine about that little old sand flea. It's just a fantastic movie. Kind of a opposite companion to No Time for Sergeants with Andy Griffith. Another great friggin' movie. Okay, so back to Jack Webb. Jack Webb developed the show Dragnet for the radio in 1952. And it was a hugely popular show on the radio until it eventually, I believe the 60s, made its way to television. 66, I think, was 66 or 67 was the first season. Coffee is good this morning. So the original series starred Jack Webb and Henry Morgan. Henry Morgan, you'll remember as the second commander on the TV series MASH. Colonel Henry Potter, the old World War I veteran. And he reprises his role in the film Dragnet. Oddly enough, it was going to be a small part. I believe they had written the part for Detective Gannon. And when they, I believe when the story goes, when they found out that he was anxious to do more, they wrote his part into the captain and added a few more scenes, which is pretty awesome because we hadn't really seen hide nor hair of him since the end of MASH and the after MASH. Let's see. So we've got Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd. Now, the other day we had listened to the Jackie Gleason show, and I had mentioned Jackie Gleason and Tom Hanks worked together in a film, Nothing in Common. And I believe this film, Nothing in Common, did happen before Dragnet. It was pre-Dragnet film. You know, this is Dragnet. The film was about the 17th or so project for Dan Aykroyd. While this was only the 7th film project after 7 TV projects for Dan Aykroyd. I mean, not Dan Aykroyd, Tom Hanks. Notably, Tom Hanks' last TV role was I believe he was the alcoholic brother that died on Family Ties. And that was a pretty heavy guest spot on a TV show. But it started to give us an idea of his dramatic chops as well as comedic. But this is Tom Hanks, only Tom Hanks' 7th feature project, and you know, after Splash, Bachelor Party, Man in One Red Shoe, Volunteers, one of my favorites, and of course, Nothing in Common with Jackie Gleason, which at that point, Nothing in Common, that was another film that started to highlight Tom Hanks' dramatic abilities as an actor. While even at his 17th project, Dan Aykroyd was still holding on to his comedy skills more than he had done. 1941, Blues Brothers, Dr. Detroit, Trading Places, Ghostbusters, and Spies Like Us, all before Dragnet. And after Dragnet, it seems as though Dan Aykroyd pretty much stuck with the comedy, hitting a few drama. Let me see. Later on, did he star in? I think he did. He was in My Girl with Macaulay Culkin. I believe that was Dan Aykroyd, and that was a great step into drama for Aykroyd. So Christopher Plummer, kind of an unusual actor, takes on the part of a dual role as the moral, oral type reverend guy, and then the evil pagan overlord, hell-bent on the destruction of Los Angeles, while his alter ego is trying to save Los Angeles. Alexandra Paul. Now, she was someone who popped up in 1982. She's still acting today. Countless TV spots and movie spots. She did 7 movies, 1 TV project before this, and quite a few things afterwards. We'll discuss Alexandra Paul on another day when we get into more of her work, because she's a little known actress. I think the only thing of real notoriety that she did before this was the good-looking girl on Stephen King's Christine. And that was kind of her introduction to craziness there. Jack O'Halloran plays Emil Muzz in the movie Dragnet. Jack O'Halloran is a very tall, very thug-looking man. He's got a great twisted face. In the movie Dragnet, he wears a huge mustache, but in the movie that I first saw him in, Superman, he was just a big kind of goofy oaf character. Jack O'Halloran. He popped up in episodes of Canon and other TV shows of the time period. But aside from doing Superman 1 and 2, he was Joe Perko alongside Sunfish, the character in King Kong, the 1976 Jeff Bridges movie. Dennis Fimple, a great American actor, director, writer. Dennis Fimple, kind of a short man, alongside Jack Halloran. Joe and Kingfish were kind of an odd duck pair. Both great character actors. Speaking of character actor, Dabney Coleman was tapped in the movie to play Jerry Caesar, who is the Hugh Hefner type character in the movie. And he does a great job, of course, Dabney Coleman. War Games. Most notably, his latest works were on the series Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. I haven't seen his work yet in that, but in Dragnet, he was asked to do a southern gentleman's accent, and decided to add the lisp to his character, kind of puckered up lisp. He does a great. Every time he makes that face in Dragnet when he talks, he puckers up those lips and does his lisp. It's just hilarious. I can't get enough of Dabney Coleman. So this is one of 179 credits to Dabney Coleman's acting career. Now, Kathleen Freeman, a long-time TV and movie character actress, played the apartment manager where Emil Muzz was staying, Enid Borden. And man, in this, she's got over 300 credits to her name. Over 300. She died in 2001. She started acting in 1948, and she had over 300 credits to her name when she passed away. Hooray, Kathleen Freeman. Awesome. She started everything. Her first movie in 1948 was The Naked City, and she did episodes of Gomer Pyle, Bonanza, Kojak, Chips. But I'll have to say that in Dragnet, the movie, she outshined everyone for the few minutes that she was on screen. Once her mouth opened up and she started shouting obscenities, every time I watch it, I cannot stop laughing. She's just hilarious. Y'all need to check her out, Kathleen Freeman. She was even in the movie The Fly with Vincent Price. I mean, she was in everything. 300 movies, TV and movies. I mean, that's crazy. So Peter Leeds, like the last character in the movie that I want to talk about, he was a character actor in TV, another almost 300 credits, mostly television, almost 300 credits to his name. Fantastic character actor. He played Roy Grest in Dragnet, the chemical Crest Chemicals company owner. And as soon as you see him on the screen and the back and forth banter between him and Joe Friday, you can totally tell that he had done this before with the original Joe Friday. Let me see, we got Henry Morgan, Kathleen Freeman, and Peter Leeds were three characters in the movie who were actually in the original Dragnet TV show. And if you look at the credits, there were probably at least a dozen or more notable TV actors from the previous decades. And they really tapped Hollywood for those old character actors who had been veterans in television. The director, Tom Mankiewicz, while he didn't have a whole lot of directing credits, most notably some episodes of what do you call it? Heart to Heart. So he did a bunch of episodes of Heart to Heart. He did some Tales of the Crypt. But as a writer, he did a lot of writing. He did a few. He helped write a few James Bond movies, Diamonds Are Forever, that kind of crap. So while he didn't do a whole lot of directing, he was an accomplished writer. In fact, he helped write, along with Dan Aykroyd and Alan Zwiebel. Am I saying that right? Alan Zwiebel. So aside from a few movies to direct, he was more of a writer. In fact, I think that this has got to be one of his best directorial jobs. But the writing, Dan Aykroyd, he and Babalu Mandel did some writing together. But you can totally tell that Dan Aykroyd wanted this because he had been in love with the Joe Friday character for a long time. He really became Joe Friday. In fact, he adopted so many of his mannerisms and not just physical mannerisms. But, vocally, he could turn a phrase just like he was Joe Friday, and that's pretty damn cool. So, a short scene. I think it's in the beginning of the station. They show a quick picture of Broderick Crawford, who was an actor who did a show called Highway Patrol back in the 50s. Had a small playing himself on Chips in season 1, I think. And I'm not sure why they decided to throw him in there. Now on Captain Gannon's desk, Henry Morgan, if you look at the picture of his wife behind him on the desk, it's the same picture he used as his wife as Colonel Potter. So there you go. Did you know that as the character Joe Friday, Jack Webb never said once the phrase, "Just the facts, ma'am"? Did you know that? Did you? Well, I did not know that. I did know, however, that the man who originated that phrase, just the facts man, was Stan Freberg, the radio personality. He did a great radio skit called Dragon Net, and I'll try to post a link to that at some point. And Dragon Net, he does a Joe Friday character, goes after the facts. It's pretty cool. So, some of the scenes in the movie. I've got a scene where Tom Hanks is watching TV on his watch, which they actually, Seiko actually had a TV watch at the time. And while the watch was a screen and you could watch TV on it, you had to have a battery pack and tuner about the size of a normal Walkman stereo. And it had to be wired to the actual watch TV in order to watch it. You had to have it held the power, and the tuner was all built into a small thing that you had to wear on your side and then wire it into your watch. It was a little before Wi-Fi, so things were a little cumbersome because everything had to have a cable hang out of it. On his desk, you see a pack of Chesterfield's cigarettes. And that's there because in 1952, Chesterfield's cigarettes was the original sponsor of the Dragnet radio show. So there you go. Call for Chesterfield. Getting a little cold in here. Whew. So if you all tune in at some point, even if it's not live, drop me a comment because I will still get it, and then I'll know that you're there. And then when it comes time for fun and games, I know who's going to be in the drawing. Oh, yeah. So also in the beginning when the two characters meet, Joe Friday and Detective Pep Strebeck, played by Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks shows up in undercover garb, long hair, facial growth. And Detective Joe Friday quotes the dress code to him. And wouldn't you know it, that Dan Aykroyd as Joe Friday would quote the dress code exactly the way it is. It's pretty much verbatim, that dress code that he quotes. And that's one of those first matter-of-fact scenes from Joe Friday where he just simply quotes facts. He's a fact man. And if you look closely, you kind of wonder, because it is Tom Hanks' slight facial growth. You can see that looks real. But is that really his hair? Did he let his hair grow out for the beginning of this so he can look real? I don't know. Tom Hanks, if you're there, was that really your beard and hair in the beginning of that? Probably not. I mean, Hollywood guys who work on so many projects, he probably didn't have time to grow hair in between projects. Totally. So the original opening to Dragnet is in there. They start the movie off with Dan Aykroyd's version of "This is the city, this is where I work, I'm a police officer. But then after the credits, we go into the story has been changed to protect the innocent. And then in sheer police story style, just like The Naked Gun, we hear the announcer say the names have been changed to protect the innocent, and then he says something like, Frank Monroe is now Susan McKendry, right? And that's total police story, Leslie Nielsen style slapstick comedy. And that's about as far as that goes. I mean, there is a lot of slapstick mugging type comedy, but it's pretty subdued, and it's pretty much on the shoulders of Tom Hanks. He has a few really goofy moments, a few goofy moments of his physical comedy when he's asked to come in and meet Jerry Caesar, and he does a whole flailing of his body, and yeah, that's Tom Hanks right there. Pre-drama Tom Hanks. I mean, even in Nothing in Common with Jackie Gleason, he still isn't really comfortable with drama. He's really more of a funny man. Anybody? Talking? Mm-mm-mm. Mm. So there's a scene in the movie where they're taking the Virgin Connie Swale home after the pagans and the snake and the jumping in the water and stuff and all the pills. So before they go back to the police station and talk to Captain Gannon, they have to take Connie Swale home and drop her off. And so they pull up to a house, obviously a house on that street in Universal Studios. And they pull up to a house where Tom Hanks asked, "Oh, can the Beaver come out and play?" Well, this house, dressed up with pink fence and shutters and pink door and pink this and pink that, 2 years later became the home of Ray Peterson's house on the Burbs. The Tom Hanks character on the Burbs, another one of my most favorite Tom Hanks movies from the era. I think comedically, Tom Hanks was probably at his best pre-90s. And that's just my opinion, but I'm one of those guys to where once they reach a certain star status, a certain diva-esque status, I really fall out of like with a lot of actors and actresses. I mean, there's very few out there who can resist that change that Hollywood brings upon you. And unfortunately, Tom Hanks hasn't really managed to escape that diva-ness. So let's see. There's a scene where they're pulling into Jerry Caesar's Hugh Hefner type mansion, and Dan Aykroyd's character Joe Friday says something to the effect of this turns my stomach that he's turned this into a Den of Gomorrah, and he's doing this in the same city where they recorded "We Are the World," right? Well, he was in that video. Dan Aykroyd was a part of that "We Are the World" project. You watch it. I think he's in there because of Ghostbusters, right? So Ray Parker Jr. is, I think, in "We Are the World," isn't he? Someone? Anyone? And although this is a Dragnet movie, it is actually, I believe it's the 7th feature film about Dragnet. Yeah. And by the way, all this information that I'm getting is from the Internet Movie Database, IMDb, Internet Movie Database. And I've been going to them for my Hollywood movie and TV information. I've been going to this site for 2 decades. Back when it was a real database and you could enter stuff in yourself, and it was free, and man, was it different back then. But Internet Movie Database, it is a great place to go for any information, Hollywood or indie, or you want to find somebody in the movies or TV, and this is the place to go. IMDb, Internet Movie Database. Great stuff. So, did you know that Dan Aykroyd, not only a cop in the movies, but he is actually a reserve commander, or was a reserve commander in Harahan, Louisiana, and right now I believe he's in Missouri or somewhere. I don't know, but Dan Aykroyd actually holds a badge and can be called into active duty as a police officer, a police watch commander, which is kind of where you would expect something like that from Steven Seagal, but a comedy actor. Granted, he was born in Canada, so he is a little weird, eh? And another notable thing about this movie is that the Pep Strebeck character by Tom Hanks, actually Dan Aykroyd wanted Jim Belushi for the job. So if you could imagine, actually I couldn't imagine Jim Belushi in this part. I'm sure Dan Aykroyd could, but I think at the time Jim Belushi would have been too serious, because comedy is harder than drama. Anybody can look at you and make you cry just by bringing some tears down their face, but it's really hard to make someone laugh. And I don't think that Jim Belushi at the time had enough experience to pull it off, whereas Tom Hanks, sure. At the same time this was released, Full Metal Jacket and Spaceballs came out in the theater. So there's some stiff competition there. Dragnet up against Full Metal Jacket, Spaceballs. Funny enough, Tom Hanks actually tried out for the part of Lone Star in Spaceballs, but he turned it down. And funny enough, Spaceballs has pretty much gotten into, the status of classic. It's Spaceballs is a comedy classic. It's an underground, one of those things that just keeps going and going and going and going, and kids find out about it. It's Dragnet is pretty much one of those forgotten films. You only remember it when it pops up on Netflix. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that movie. So it's kind of funny that he gave up the role of Lone Star to play Pep Streebek, only to be overshadowed eventually by Lone Star and Spaceballs. I mean, could you imagine? I couldn't imagine Jim Belushi as Pep Streebek. I certainly couldn't imagine Tom Hanks as Lone Star. That's a little out there. Also, y'all remember Albert Brooks, right? She did a bunch of weird movies. She would pop up on Saturday Night Live, doing weird movies, little weird films. She would pop up on Johnny Carson's show with the original Johnny Carson, The Tonight Show. Come out and do these little silly little skits. He was kind of a weird guy, Albert Brooks. But he was actually looked at for the part of Pep Streebek, and I certainly couldn't imagine him, kind of a neurotic fluster budget. No. So one last connection between Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd is Donna Dixon. Donna Dixon, who was Tom Hanks' co-star in Bosom Buddies, eventually became Dan Aykroyd's wife, and to this day they're husband and wife. So yay, Dan Aykroyd and Donna Dixon. And while we're at it, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. Way to go. So I want to thank all of these actors and actresses for your work, for making me happy, making me laugh. Well, so the movie itself really is kind of far removed from the Dragnet world. And while Dan Aykroyd's Joe Friday really keeps us in the Dragnet world, everything else is just like out there. The banter between Joe Friday and the citizens when he's questioning people, it's phenomenal. He really does he does Joe Friday's walk. He does Joe Friday's talk. One thing that I always thought was unusual, and they really poke fun of it in this movie, was because most of the Dragnet shows were narrated by Joe Friday. A lot of times they would show up to the scene of a crime, and Joe Friday would be talking in the background. And so you see a lot of Joe Friday and Detective Gannon, his partner, pointing. They do a lot of pointing and looking at each other, pointing and shaking their heads. And I'll be damned if when you watch it in the movie, you're going, well, that seems weird. But then it also makes you think, oh my God, how many episodes and how many times in an episode did we see those two point off somewhere and shake their heads and look at each other? Or just the fact that they would look at each other and nod and acknowledge each other that, yes, I'm thinking the same thing you are. Now, I'm going to have to go back and watch some Dragnet episodes, just because the underlying humor in every one of those episodes is so subtle, but it's so there. I mean, questioning Nazis about LSD and marijuana. I mean, it's just, you know, what I'm saying. It's just, it's fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this has kind of been a long week. After I do this show, I get my act together and then I go to work for a couple hours and then come home and try to get my act together for the next project that I'm working on. And wouldn't you know it, the next project that I'm working on, aside from Monday's show, and remember, we're here Monday through Thursday from 5 till at least 6 every week. I'm going to be starting up a Friday night show. So Friday Night Live at 5 in the evening, I'll be bringing you more of me and local entertainment and stories and nonsense and nostalgia from the past. So be sure to tune in. It should be a lot of fun. And if it isn't, what does it matter? I can do whatever I want. Which last night I must have sent myself to the floor laughing so hard when all of a sudden it hit me that for most of my life, for whatever bizarre reasons, I have always wanted my own TV show. To do what? I don't know. I remember back in the 80s, 90s, there was a My TV show, short-lived thing on MTV or VH1. I've probably mentioned this before. But man, how I felt, well, gosh, how that would be neat if I could just have my own TV show. And things have gotten so weird in this world that a guy like me not only can have his own TV show or 2 or 3, but I've got my own channel. I've got my own TV station. YouTube has given me the ability to broadcast live or recorded from my house at any given moment. Not just from my house, from anywhere. Anywhere I go, I can broadcast my show, me, my stuff. That's freaking awesome. I mean, who'da thunk, right? That this kook could have his own show. And I don't have to answer to anyone except my own morality and YouTube rules. I mean, how awesome is that? how completely insane is it to give a guy like me his own show? Who knows what I'll do with it? It's not likely I'm going to rule the world, but hey, maybe I could. I'll tell you what, I definitely rule my own world, because this TV show stuff is pretty cool. So be sure to stop in on occasion and see what's going on. And please leave a comment, even if you're just coming by after the fact, after we're done being live. Just leave a comment. You know, when I just got another subscriber. Woohoo! So it's either going to be my 100th episode or my 100th subscriber. But I will be doing a drawing, and I will be giving away some really cool vintage retro awesome stuff, because I got so much of this crap around here. You know, old magazines, 8-tracks, LPs, 45s, bumper stickers, buttons, memorabilia up the wazoo. Enter the drawing and take yourself home a Lake Elsinore Casino poker chip, a hat, a t-shirt. You never know what you're going to get. But I tell you what I'm going to get. I'm going to get the hell out of here, because it's just about 6 o'clock. The sun should be coming up behind me anytime. So I am going to get moving on the road. All right, people. It's been fantastic. I want to thank y'all for joining me this morning. So be sure to stop by Monday morning when we will be discussing, who knows, probably dreams. We're talking about the old days, because I love to talk about the old days. So, you know, be sure to stop by and see me. Y'all have a great weekend. See you Monday. And coming soon, Friday Night Live at 5. Y'all take care. Adios, weirdos.